Happy holidays, and welcome into this week's edition of Intercollegiate Conversations. It's been a great year so far, with a lot of great guests. So we're going to do something different here to wrap up 2024. Take a look back at our conversations with all of the coaches we've talked to in college athletics. How different do you think the industry is from the coaching perspective? Have you seen a lot of change, even just in your own coaching career?
No question. I mean, the landscape of college coaching has changed, in the last couple of years. And you can really pinpoint since COVID and the transfer portal, that has changed the complexion of college coaching. Even in the time frame when I started coaching at QU in 2014, from those 7 or 8 years that I coached there, the landscape of college coaching has changed. So, reverting back to the early 2000s, and thinking about what college coaching was, what the recruiting process was like, they're just two completely different worlds. Now that you have all this technology at your disposal, being able to use social media to your advantage, being able to foster relationships with the travel baseball world, there's a lot more that goes into coaching at this level outside of just what you do on the field. Being able to build the program up the right way and finding the right players for your program. It's definitely a full-time, 12-month-a-year job that you got to invest in your program. So, I don't know if I can speak to the coaching back when, I was playing, and I just know that I had some really good coaches, and I was really thankful to play for Skip Cooley at that time, who actually taught me a lot and probably doesn't even realize how much he taught me. And I don't even know at that time if I recognized how important he was in my life outside of the support that he gave me day in and day out. But he helped kind of shape who I am as a coach today based on the way that he was for me as a player. So it's pretty funny just to kind of reflect back on things that happened over 20 years ago and how it's kind of shaped me into the coach I am today.
I think, everyone talks about the changing landscape. Everybody. I mean, you can't get on a call without somebody talking about it. But I believe, man, that I wake up every day with the same mentality I did when I was a 23-year-old assistant, high school coach. And that's to impact young people. And I think whenever that mission changes, then I probably got to look at doing something outside of basketball. I think that there's probably more transactional decisions that are being made in college basketball. But I think the forefront, the reason that I wake up and coach basketball today, it hasn't wavered, it hasn't changed. I think when you attack it that way, just like any profession, you look at real estate, you look at running a business, you look at, being a pastor, like things in life change, but the more they change, the more they stay the same. And for me, like, it hasn't changed, man. I wake up every day. I want to love on these guys. I want them to be better husbands, better fathers. I want them to be successful members of our society. And along with that, if you're going to adapt with the world, you have to have your non-negotiables, and you have to have a flexible approach. And I think my approach has probably changed. Wanted to be such a disciplinarian when I was 27, 28, 29, showing guys I was demanding respect, where I think that the biggest change for me is just understanding. Hey, I've got 3 daughters now. I probably, my patience is probably, pretty high. I treat them like I would treat my daughters. I want to help them. I want to encourage them. I want to learn from them, but I want them to be their best. And so I think, although things are changing, I think if you really are in this for the reasons I am, I don't think they have changed as much.
Yeah, no doubt. I think the X's and O's, that portion of the job is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And something that I really have to remind myself, like, hey, get down in the batting cage. That's what you love to do. Don't be worried about filling out that compliance form at 3 o'clock when you can be working with your players downstairs or on the field. There's just so much administrative stuff and a lot of CYA. You got to make sure that your butt's covered, and there's a lot of oversight, and I think those are all good things. But yeah, I think the mental health aspect, understanding mental health of your student athletes is incredibly important nowadays, something that we didn't talk at all about when I first began. My father once said when he first started coaching, you could say 3 things to a coach, and that was yes, no, sorry, I screwed up. And nowadays, I'm grateful. Not every day am I grateful for this, but I'm grateful that I have to know why. The student athlete's going to ask why. And if they don't, audibly ask it, they're asking it no matter what. They're always asking why. And you better be able to provide your why. Why am I making this adjustment with my stance right now? I better be able to explain why I think it's a good idea. And that makes me a better coach. So I think those things have certainly changed. I think, but if you get away from the X's and I'm fascinated by Gino Auriemma when we do a campus tour with our recruits. He's just an incredible coach, obviously a Hall of Famer. And as much of a big personality as he has, and he's a celebrity, he's famous, and he could get away with probably just showing up to practice, and he doesn't wear a whistle. He gets their attention in different ways. I'm not saying he could mail it in, but he could probably come pretty close to mailing it in and be very successful. And yet I am fascinated by whenever we go over and we see the gold medals and we see the nets on his championship trophies and all this stuff in his office. He's got a little putting green in there too. He's got a nice office. The thing that blows my mind is if you go and look at his desk, he's got little note cards kind of littered across his desk that are plays like drawn up, dot, 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 pass here. You can see the players cutting and they're little drawings and scribbles. Like he's a mad scientist. He's still working at perfecting the offense or defense or whatever he's going to coach that day, maybe implement. He's still working at his craft, and I think I wish we could do more of that. So he always inspired to remember like, hey, it's still coach. It's not counselor. It's not priest. It's not rabbi. You're still a coach. You're not administrator. You're not CEO. You're still a coach, and you're still a teacher.
I think in general, as you go up levels, you specialize a little bit more, or you have people that can specialize within your staff. So while I was a junior college coach at Rock Valley College in Illinois, I had my first year, I had a 69-year-old retired high school coach as my assistant, and he was awesome. But I was running weights, and I was a strength and conditioning coordinator. I was a sports information director. I was the head men's coach. All the player development work. I was everything. Literally as the head coach, I was doing absolutely everything. Then I moved to NAI and then NCAA Division II, now Division I. And I probably coach my guys less now than I ever have. And I have a full staff of guys, young quality assistants who are good on the floor, and I let them work. While that's important to me, and I love being on the floor with our guys, I also have a responsibility to repurpose my time into program building, into enhancing our facilities. This is through a fundraising effort and program friend raising responsibilities. The things that go into recruiting, the administrative meetings. There's just such a plethora of things. It's almost become like a CEO type position, where you have to become an expert on delegation and management, and dating back to the camp organization, when we ran 175 camps in 19 states, I was at 10 of those camps. So I'd learned that at a progressively young age and moving forward that the things have to take place whether you're there or not. So to put systems in place and to empower others to do things that they enjoy. I think it all kind of plays into what goes on now as a coach at the Division I level.
In general, what do you think are some qualities coaches should look for in a school to know that that's the right environment to go, work for or work with?
That's a great question. For me, I'm just trying to get, a good sense of the people that I'm going to be working with, the institution that I'm going to be working for. And it's almost a tough answer to give just because I've only been to two places. Like I've been to Quinnipiac and I've been to Sacred Heart, so I don't have a lot of references. Maybe some of these coaches that have spent time at different universities with different jobs and job titles, they can probably speak on it a little bit better. But at least for me, it was really important the type of people that I was going to surround myself with. But I think honestly, the number one factor, excuse me, is trying to find out what type of support you're going to have. I think getting an idea of where they see the program, what the future of the program looks like, any type of investment that they may or may not make will give you a good idea of when you do get that job, what are the expectations when you do get it. I knew right away when I sat down with the athletic director, Judy Ann, my baseball administrator, Greg Zullo, and even Mike Morrison, like those were really genuine people that when I can have a conversation with them, they were not only very transparent about where the program is and what they saw as the future for the program. It made me feel really comfortable about knowing exactly what to expect when I walk through those doors. And it just kind of helps set you up for the right mindset with where you envision the program being able to move forward. So I would say just I'm trying to get a really good understanding of the people you're going to surround yourself with.
Think that you have to try to find people, and this is hard to recognize, but I think maybe by asking people around that person, you can find it is like who takes the job seriously, but not themselves seriously. You know, I've been very lucky that I've worked for, Duger Balcom and Allie Jackson and Brett Campbell and like people that realized that there was more to life than basketball, even though basketball is extremely important to us. So yes, you work hard, but the relationship piece is what matters here. And, it can't just be about winning and losing. I know it is. Like college coaches get hired and fired almost entirely off of winning and losing, but I don't think a program functions well if that's the only thing it's about. I don't think those results will come out if that's how it's approached day in, day out. So again, find people who will work hard, want to progress your career. If you're looking at it from the how do I move up trajectory, like how have people left that program on their staffs? But more importantly, like what do people around that person that's doing the hiring say about them? And if that guy seems like a good dude, or hey man, that guy's just going to run you into the ground and you're going to get screamed at all day long. Like that's I don't think maybe somebody wants to go work for that person. I don't think it's that important. But yeah.
So when I was 28 years old, I didn't have a job. So I didn't really care what stability, that didn't really matter. Now I got very lucky because the administration at Daytona State was awesome. We were a very, very well resourced junior college program. So that was a bonus. But if I'm being honest, I was 32 years old. I got offered a Division I head job. I didn't care. I was blindsided. I was, hey, this is a Division I job. I didn't care about facilities. I didn't care about resources. I didn't care about scholarships. I didn't care about any of that. And then I'm 36 and I get a chance to go coach in the OVC. I was born in Kentucky. So coaching in the OVC was like, whoa, I was probably blinded by some of the have-nots. And so at that particular point, the only reservation was, am I moving my family from Ormond Beach, Florida to Martin, Tennessee? You're going from golf carts and beaches to rural West Tennessee where you've got pastures and corn and farm animals, and it's different. We moved away from both sides of the family, so that was probably more important to me than maybe the stability of the basketball program or the school. But now as we're getting older, I've got 3 kids, and I've got to really look long term. Is this best for our actual family unit, not just from a basketball standpoint?
Yeah, I'm probably the wrong guy to ask because I've been stuck in a rut here for, since 2003 as a head coach. But no, not at all. I think you have, I remember Jim Calhoun said something to me, or he might have said, I don't know if he said it to me or I read it. He's said some really great things to me over the years, just giving me some good advice. But I think I may have read this piece, and he was talking about when he was leaving Northeastern or thinking about leaving Northeastern, and Bobby Knight was a friend of his and said, you want to go somewhere where it's the University of something. That means that there's resources. It's the University of Connecticut, the University of California, Los Angeles. There's going to be resources there, and it's going to matter to people. And I think as long as you feel as though it matters to the employer, like that job baseball in my instance matters at the University of Connecticut. I think it matters more now than it did 20 years ago, certainly. But it meant a lot to people back when I took the job and when I played here too. People were invested in the place, and I'm not talking about just donors, but talking about alumni coming back. People cared about it. People wanted to see it get better. So wherever you can go where people really give a blank about it, that's a good place to start. If nobody cares whether you win or lose, that's not attractive to me. At UConn, no matter what sport, we could be coaching tiddlywinks at UConn and people care about it. We still have an incredible media here. half the state's Yankee fans, half of them are Red Sox fans, because there's some Mets fans sprinkled in. Half of them are Knicks fans, half of them are Celtics fans. UConn's the only thing that 169 communities, 169 towns can call their own. And we're very parochial in this state. You know, if you live in Weathersfield, you might not live in Griswoldville. Well, they're all part of Weathersfield, old Weathersfield. You know, they're very parochial and not very regionalized. You know, where you are in Houston, that's very regionalized. We don't even really pay attention to counties here. It's each individual town and village are very important, and yet we all come together for UConn. And that to me is incredibly attractive. You know, Boston College could win a national championship and it's going to be an agate type in the Boston Globe. It's not going to make a headline. Whereas we do it, it's on it's on the front page of, if they still have newspapers, you know, of the Connecticut Post, the Hartford Courant, the New London Day, the Waterbury Republican American, the Journal Inquirer, you know, the Hartford Courant, you name it, you know, Greenwich Time, Norwalk Hour. It means a lot to people here. So, you know, that's a really good place to start, I think. If it means a lot to not just to the employer, but to the people around that place, I think that's a really good place to start.
What would be your advice to those either trying to break into college coaching or that feel like they're stuck at a lower level, let's say, in the college ranks? What would be your advice for somebody to deal with that frustration and to have the patience to, you know, give it time to hopefully be able to move up the ladder?
Yeah, I think when you're first getting into coaching, first of all, you got to be willing to work for nothing, because that's just the nature of the beast. And even maybe more so now that this house settlements happen in schools, lower major universities are going to have less amount of money. But you're working for a recommendation. So if you can just get your foot in the door and get that recommendation, it's honestly, I think it's almost like you got a 1 or 2 year window when you're first getting in there, maybe 3, depending on what everybody's individual means are, to say like, hey, I just got to go at this thing. And it's either going to happen or it's not. And there's going to be people that it certainly probably are deserving that it doesn't happen for. But none of it's going to happen if you don't work and if you aren't willing to go beyond what's asked of you. So you have to definitely start from there, right? For the people that are in it, have been in it for a while and haven't made the progress they would like, I do think a lot of this is sticking to it. And that eventually, you know, kind of like what the old bamboo tree thing is, like it grows underground for years and all of a sudden 1 year it just shoots up like that. I think that's reality. I will say this, me leaving to go to women's basketball obviously helped me tremendously. I don't get here right now without that. But I think when I got out of coaching altogether, I lost sight of why I enjoyed coaching. I started comparing myself to where everybody else was in their career. And all of a sudden, what I was doing wasn't good enough anymore. And since I was 12 years old, I knew I wanted to be a college basketball coach. And there wasn't a dollar amount or a title that was attached to that when I was 12 years old. Now, we're adults, responsibilities. Those are all real things that you have to come to terms with. And can you navigate all that? But, you know, for me, I lost sight of what I really loved it. And so I think you have to make sure that even through those tough times that you have people there to help remind you, even though my father tried to help me and I didn't listen to him anyways. Like, hey man, this is not why you do this. If you just stick with this, and keep doing your job well, it'll work out. And you have to have some faith in that. There's no doubt about it. Now the counter to that was, I mean, I did some outside of the box move there. Maybe that's not the move for everybody, but it worked for me. So maybe don't be afraid to do something that you never considered before, just because it's an opportunity, and opportunities are all you can ask for. And they might be few and far between in college coaching, because there's a ton of people who want to do these jobs and very few jobs to do them. Coach B used to always put it in perspective for us as assistants at the Citadel. He used to always say, like, hey man, there's fewer Division I men's basketball assistant coaches than there are brain surgeons in this country. And obviously we're not nearly as smart, but it does provide some perspective of like, man, hey, there's a lot of people who want to do this job. I'm pretty lucky that I get to do it.
What about for a coach within the industry? Like, how important is networking and the relationships for a coach that obviously all coaches, you guys always want to continue to move up the ladder throughout your career. So how important are that networking and relationships throughout the industry?
No, they're huge. They're very, 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 very important. But I would like to say before the relationship piece is you have to be a good human and you have to be somebody that brings value to the table. And that has and a lot of that is based off your hard work, the grinding, them seeing you out recruiting, them seeing you at camps working hard, them seeing you, building those relationships with the travel ball coaches and the players, and them seeing that you bring value to them. You know what I mean? In any relationship, you have to bring something to the table, right? We like the best analogy I like to say is that before you get into any relationship, you got to know who you are and got to have your strengths and know what you bring to the table. So once you can figure those things out and then take the next step of trying to network and do all these great things and meet all these people, then if people know you by, hey, this person's a hard worker, hey, they have great relationships within the travel ball world, hey, this person, the kids love them, hey, this person is great at coaching hitting, or this person is great at coaching fielding, like you bring in value. So now your network is able to grow faster or bigger because people know you bring the right principles and the right values to them. You know what I mean? I think that's the part about networking that I don't think gets talked about enough. It's cool to know a bunch of people, but like if they know of you in bad ways, then that's not a good thing. So your networking won't be great. You know what I mean?
Something you know now, having spent about a decade coaching, that maybe you wish you knew when you were getting in, that, could be a good piece of advice to others that are maybe starting out in college coaching. And
That's a great question. I think, when I first got into college coaching, the first year or two, I would say, from a developmental perspective, and definitely from the pitchers and even with the guys I interacted with on the position player side, I essentially knew this bucket of information that I learned from the coaches from professional baseball or at the collegiate level that I always tried to impart on the players that I coach. That's kind of who we are. We round ourselves out by the people that are around us and who's influenced us in our careers. Now, nowadays, there is so much information out there for coaches to be able to utilize to their advantage. I think the biggest thing is being able to invest in the right information for coaches, because I think it's a way to kind of grow your knowledge of the game. There's a lot of different languages that we need to speak nowadays, because so many players have different coaches, hitting coaches, pitching coaches, coaches that they play for in high school and for travel, and everybody kind of talks a different language. So there is a little bit to being able to speak all those different languages. But I would just say this is that if, I am all about that growth mindset and trying to learn, trying to get better. But the important thing is investing in it the right way. I think sometimes as coaches, we can get a little caught up in trying to know a little about a lot of things instead of a lot about a few things.
Put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to have conversations with the coaches that are way up there, or the coaches that you think are too good for you to even have a conversation with. You hear people say that a lot, but at that age, when you're new, you're fresh out, like you're nervous. I mean, that's just humans in general. Like anything that's new is unknown. So you're going to be nervous about it. You're going to have those anxieties and those feelings that like, wow, like I'm not ready. You know what I mean? And I think the biggest thing for me then was like being surrounded with the staff at Alabama State, those coaches, Mervell, Jose and Drew, Matt, like those guys really, really opened my eyes to like having a mindset that we're on the equal playing field with everybody. And like when they came to Alabama State, they did some amazing things, and we went down and beat Miami and beat Auburn and played all these big time schools and did all these great things. But it was because they always had the mindset that we're always equal, right? Once we step on that field, that on the game decides the game, not the name on the jersey and all that stuff. Like you still got to go out there and play. So I would tell any young person coming into it, you have to have that mindset for you. Like I'm on the equal playing field as everybody else, and they had to earn it the same way you have to earn it. So it's all about respect, understanding that, it's a grind, and understand that nothing's gonna be given to you. And the more you have that mindset to go out and grind and work for it, you'll end up where you want to be.
Couple different things. Number one is you got to sacrifice your ego in this business. You can't compare your journey to anybody else. And I've been very fortunate. I pinch myself every day. I'm the head coach at Mercer University before my 40th birthday. That's crazy, man. Luke, I never thought I would be. I had dreamed of it, but to have all those things, yes, we've been successful. Yes, we've had some good teams, but you still got to get a pinch of luck in there. And so I think the first thing is just sacrificing your ego and not comparing your journey, because your value isn't based on what someone else decides it is. If you're waking up and you're doing what you love to do, and that's impacting young people or coaching basketball, then focus on that. And the second, you start, I think I remember a couple of years ago, I think I got named top 40 under 40, the ESPN list. And I'm looking at guys now that are on there making $2-3 million, but I'm also looking at guys on there that are no longer coaching. And so if I sat there and started comparing myself every single time, you're going to set yourself up for disappointment. So that'd really be probably the biggest thing, is just don't compare your journey, man. Focus on the things that you can control, and then just constantly asking yourself, hey, why am I doing this? What is my purpose in life? What is my purpose in this thing? And when you can answer it the same way every day, and you're fulfilled by that, then I don't think it matters the level that you coach, the opportunities you get. I think you'll be very fulfilled in the destination you choose.
One of the things I do, and it maybe is a little bit vulnerable here, when I was 22, 23, 24, 25, I looked at these guys who were in their, higher level spots in their career, like a head coach that was sitting next to me, or a high major assistant. I was like, man, why would they want to talk to me? Almost a little nervous or passive of like, they're human beings. Just strike up a conversation with them. And I know we're out there recruiting a lot of time, we're doing our jobs, but that doesn't mean that they aren't willing to talk to you. And I think that because I was so passive when it came to networking, probably because of like a little social anxiety, if you will, that hurt me, and, just be a good dude, work hard, and, talk to guys, and the networking piece will help. But, it's not that complicated. If you're willing to just kind of stick to the basics and be good to people, and just put yourself out there a little bit.
What is one of the best pieces of advice you think you've been given throughout your life or career that you still apply today to being a Division I coach?
It's easy. How you do anything is how you do everything. And I think that every detail matters. I think that, anytime you're willing to take a shortcut, it will backfire. It will follow you. It will get caught somewhere. So how you do anything is how you do everything. So if you're going to take out that trash on a Friday morning, you better make sure that lid's closed, the bags are tied. It's ready for those garbage men to come take. Because if I want to untie my bag and I leave the thing open and a raccoon gets in there, that's on me. But I've taken that motto because everything really does matter. And it doesn't mean you're going to be great at it, but how you attempt to do it, I think is very important. And I think our guys understand that we're not going to be great at everything. But are we giving our best effort to everything that's being asked of us?
Yeah, I'd heard this when I was young, and it means a lot to me. And it's just, don't forget where you came from. I'm a small town South Dakota guy. I'm from Alcester, South Dakota. I just got invited back to speak 20 years after, on the date that I had graduated high school. And I speak all the time. This is what I do. I speak, Final Four coaches clinics and in front of big crowds and the keynote speakers and stuff. And this is what I do. I've eulogized friends. I've been I got a LT Davis. I got to officiate his wedding with his wife. But when I got to speak at the commencement exercises at Alcester Hudson High School, I was really nervous, and I don't get nervous on that because it's what I do, but it meant so much to me to be able to talk to the graduates and all the attendees at the school that I came from, and that means so much to me. It's so close to my heart, and it goes back to not forgetting. And the reason it means so much to me is because I don't forget that I was raised on a farm right outside of Alcester, South Dakota, and with two awesome parents and three older brothers, and it's all about family and community. So I remember that. I take that with me every single day, and I love my people in Alcester. I just think that community in general, everywhere I go, and I see that sense of community, and you can impact that, you can embrace it, and I think there's so much going on right now, and everybody gets caught up in what's going on with presidential elections and what's going on worldwide. And while it's important to pay attention and see all that and impact that when you can, the biggest impact everybody can make is right in their own backyard and with the people they see every single day. And that's how I was raised, and I'll never forget that. And I think that's great advice that I recommend everybody look at. Is don't forget where you came from, and while you may came from a tough situation, don't forget that either. Because that helped mold you to where you're at today as well.
Trust. Really, really, really understanding trust with your student athletes and your staff. It was a great analogy. Like guy, like the sheriff's name, Rodney DeLong, gave me when I took the job, and I asked him, I was like, "What's one of the big things you would say is important?" And he said, "Trust." He's like, think about it like this. You have a full bucket of water, right? And once you dump it out, and that's losing the staff or whoever, the players, they're losing trust in it. It takes one drop at a time to fill it back up. So understanding that and kind of thinking about that concept is like, you really have to have that trust in your players and your staff, your parents, anybody involved with your program to know that trust is very important in any relationship, because this is a relationship game that we play, sports in general. Like, it's all about our relationships, because if you don't have great relationships, it doesn't really matter how talented you are, because that's going to overtake that. You know what I mean? Because the game's going to stop. We play and practice for a short amount of time, but all the time spent outside of the field and in the classroom, that's almost more important. You know what I mean? Because now you get to create that family environment. So I would say trust, and I would like to credit that Rodney DeLong at UNT.
Be yourself. Whatever that is, be your authentic self, because if you try to be something else, they're going to figure out quick enough, and it's not going to be effective. That is not as big a challenge as it was when I first started. And that's something I think young professionals need to understand. I had to kind of fake it till I make it, and fake it till I made it when I was initially a 24-year-old assistant coach. I was coaching guys that I played with, that I drank beer with, on the weekends, and it wasn't natural. And I wore my suits to work, before I changed into my uniform, trying to put up kind of an artificial barrier, like, hey, that's coach now, I'm different. But now, I'm 52 years old. They look at me like more of a father than a peer, and it's much easier to be myself, and be comfortable in my skin. But I think the sooner you can get there, the better off you're going to be. Now, even as a young assistant, I even though I might have put up those artificial barriers, like, okay, I'm in a suit and tie, so I'm not like a player. It was a reminder for me that I couldn't be a peer. I could be their friend, but I couldn't be a peer. And it was also a reminder to them, like, hey, don't cross that line. We can't be talking about your Thursday night out, when we're on the field. But now it's very easy. So I think Roger Bidwell, UConn Avery Point legendary baseball coach, told me that one time when I got hired. He said, hey, just remember, just whatever you do, be yourself.